show today was brought to you by VitaPLUR E-Boost Gum. With no pill to take or powders to mix, VitaPLUR E-Boost Gum is a first-of-its-kind energy rave supplement that provides magnesium, electrolytes, and antioxidants while you chew. VitaPLUR is the perfect complement to my active lifestyle, whether it's at the festival, on the road touring, or hitting the gym. Chew VitaPLUR and dance with confidence. Use code Lizzy Jane for 10% off any order.
Well, Dre, thank you for coming on today.
Oh, we're live?
We're live. We're
Yo, what's
live.
up? I
We're
love
live.
it. Cool.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Early morning podcast.
Early
Love
morning.
it.
It's the best time to be.
Get the bird, get the worm. I know, I am, what I discussed with you earlier, I am forever ending trying to be a morning person because I just feel like your days are longer, you start earlier, you get more accomplished. It also is the exact opposite of how our scene works. But
Yes.
let's do both. Let's sleep when we're dead.
Well, I think it's really good to wake up as early as possible just because the world hasn't woken up yet. And so, for instance, even if you want to get on social media, right, and distract yourself, which you shouldn't, but if you can, nobody's really tweeting or posting or anything, so there's even nothing really to distract yourself with. So
100%.
everything's just kind of chill and relax, and you can kind of get a jump start on the game and jump start on everybody else and kind of get ahead of it. Also, your creativity right out of your dream state, you're not bogged down by the day. You're not bogged down by the day's problems. You haven't, your car hasn't broken down yet. You don't have to worry about that, or nobody's texting you with this, that, or the third. So you can kind of just, everything's just nice and free and uplifting and just kind of clear, in the morning, which is what I love doing. So I'm glad we're doing this early, and while we're nice and fresh.
Absolutely. And I mean, it sounds like you have it down.
I do.
What's your morning routine? On days that you don't have work or you're not traveling, are you a more creative person in the morning?
Well, funny thing is my morning routine actually kind of isn't as stringent when I have my days off of work, but when I am working, I try to stay as tight with it as possible because I do have limited time during the day, right? If you're going to an 8-hour shift, you only have 8 hours to really hone in on whatever you need to do. So I do try to stay as strict as possible on my work days and sometimes fall short on my off days because it's my off day, right?
Yeah.
But I have a typical, I suppose, millennial morning routine, and I didn't realize that until you see a reel of them making fun of your morning routines, and you're like, oh, damn, I thought I was cool. I guess not anymore. But I wake up, I do some breathing exercises, I take my cold shower, which is another thing to do, but it really, really helps just kind of jolt you into existence. Once that's done, do some meditation and then do some stretches, typically some sun salutations, just get the body moving, get my coffee. I'm a French press guy, so I do like to have a nice cup of coffee in the morning. While I'm doing that, it allows me to either clean up my area. It allows me to kind of set goals for the day, kind of visualize what I want to do for the day, kind of think about what I need to work on musically. Hey, do I need to work on this track? Do I need to work on this mix? Am I creating a piece of content? It kind of gets me settled while that water's boiling and everything. And then once the coffee's done, I read a book until I'm done my large cup of coffee, and then off to the races.
Absolutely. And I mean, so many things that you just elaborated on are things that I feel everybody should do every day. The cold showers, the ice baths, that has been a game changer for me when you need to feel refreshed, when you need to wake up, when you're okay, I need a nap, but I don't have time for a nap. So how can I get this sense of rejuvenation, of being refreshed, and reading a book? That's a huge goal for me this year. Books are so important to be able to see the perspective of other people's lives, and whether it's fiction or nonfiction, just to be able to disconnect yourself and bring perspective into your life from somebody else's narration, I think is too cool. And it goes hand in hand as well with what we do creatively.
Absolutely.
As far as getting inspiration from this or inspiration from that. And my personal move to Denver has inspired me more than I think anything has in the last 5 years. And you're recently new to Denver too, as far as living here long term.
Yes.
You moved here from the South too, from
I
NOLA.
did. Awesome. Yes. New Orleans. I love it dearly. I'm even wearing my little Buku hoodie. I always rep it as much as possible. But yeah,
yes.
I got up here about, I guess we're coming up on a year and a half. So last not last October.
Okay.
So I came in, and that was a really intense thing for me, especially because I lived in New Orleans my entire life, right? And I'm blessed to say, I know not everybody has this blessing, but I love where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
I deeply, and I mean, the whole brand that I came up with has roots in New Orleans and everything. And I've always kind of tried to rep the city as best as possible, right? So it was a difficult decision, but it was right after Hurricane Ida. So there was a lot of unknown swirling around. I was out of work. I was a tour guide at Mardi Gras World. There was some damage there. The whole city was just kind of trying to figure out what happens after a Category 5 hurricane. And I remember the rebuild process of Katrina. And
I was about to say, you've been through quite a few.
Exactly. So I was like, I need to make a change. And I'd been wanting to make a change for a while. For a few years, I've been thinking, I was like, I know I need to switch something up to keep something fresh and to really progress me as a human being, progress my art, progress my career. And this was one of those signs from the universe. I remember when I was evacuated in Arkansas, and you could just tell we were out fishing. Me and Mitch were out fishing on the lake or on the river. And he just was like, bro, are you okay? And I was like, I'm just thinking a lot. I was going through a process of a lot of thinking. And that ultimately led me to be like, okay, it's time to move to Denver. It's time to make that switch. It was intense because I moved in with 4 strangers.
Yeah.
I had never met. I sent off like 50 different Facebook messages. I told myself I told my leasing company I'm leaving. I didn't have a place lined up yet. I just said, screw it. I'm going. I'm figuring it out. Send it as many messages as possible. It's really difficult to get anybody to bite when you're like, I don't have that much money. I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And I don't have any really references. So just take a bet on me.
Yeah.
Luckily, someone took a bet on me, moved in with 4 strangers, moved into a basement for the first time. I lived underground, which is really weird.
Yes.
Floridian, you get it. You're supposed to hit water when you dig 2
I'm already
feet.
underground.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I was born under sea level. Like,
Yeah.
what is this kind of thing, right? So I was one of those, I was living underground for the first time with strangers. It wasn't the greatest living situation. But we talked about this before the podcast started. Literally 2 weeks after I moved up, Mitch calls me. He's like, when is your lease up? And I was like, it's up in 6 months. He's like, bet, I'm moving to Denver. And once I had that Andre, just get through 6 months of this. Just get through 6 months of this. I knew that
timetable, you were gonna make it.
We could just rock it after that.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. It was a really hard learning curve. It was a lot of growth and a lot of frustration and a lot of depression getting through that. But as most things, the best things in life are the hardest, right? So.
Oh my God, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, it is hard because I fall in that same category as you, where I think where I come from in St. Pete and Tampa is a really like high quality of life. And I really did love it. And I think if I was there, not my whole life, I could have moved there or I could have enjoyed it, long term.
Right.
But moving does so much for your, I think, personal growth and just like being like an adult, like transferring from that young adult period of your life to, okay, I don't have these people to call. I'm on my own here. We have bills to pay. We have this to do. Are you making more than you're spending? Are you doing X, Y, and Z? And especially crossing off all of those check marks while you're trying to build a musical project that isn't necessarily giving you any return. It's just like starting a business. You have that 5 to 10 year mark before you're seeing an actual profit come from after your expenses of traveling and hotel and photos and mixing and mastering and all of that stuff. And it's my mentality was you can always go back if you don't like it. But
that's what everybody says,
you know,
right?
you can always go
Home's
back
always
home.
here. That's what everyone said. My parents were always like, you can always come back, and now my dad's like, when are you coming back?
Yeah.
But yeah.
My mom did the same shit because it's not like college. Because when you go to college or if you go to like a community school or if you're a dorm or a trade school.
You stayed in state for your college?
No, I left state.
Oh, okay.
So I left state and then I came back after a year and a half. I transferred back and finished in Florida at a trade school for audio engineering.
Love it.
Went to a traditional university. I was like, I tried it. Cool. Not for me, but you still kind of have that umbrella, whether it's, you're in a dorm, your parents are still like helping you or you've got a job, but like there's this person who's kind of still watching out for you.
Absolutely.
It's so different when you're like, hey, I'm picking up everything. I'm packing my car. We're packing the trailer. We've got our dogs and we're going. And we came out here the same way as you, where we really didn't have anywhere to live. We came out here, stayed at an Aloft hotel, and then turned around and we're like, we don't like any of the properties that we're looking at right now.
Which are difficult to come about anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. We want to do a 3-month lease somewhere, 6-month lease somewhere. And we were like, where can take us? Like, where can
just
we
the
get
first
this done?
one, exactly. I went with literally the first person to reply to me and say yes. You just have to take that leap. You just have to dive in and just trust that, because it's almost like, I know this is going to be so difficult, and therefore I know that at the end of this line there will be something to come to fruition from it, right? Something good is going to come from this, because I can see how difficult this is about to become. You know?
And you know what I also think is fucking crazy, that kind of like co-aligns with our like moving stories.
I'm glad we can curse. I'm glad we just found that out.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. Say whatever you want.
I'm a sailor.
Yeah, you're good. I am too. My mom's like, all the smart people curse a lot. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But you know, I see a commonality in people who move out here, transplants. The majority are transplants.
Yep.
And then they bring people with them because
Yes.
their friends come to visit and they see how fucking cool it is. And it's like, I feel like Denver is just this special niche pocket of so many, not only like the EDM scene is probably one of the biggest destinations in the United States.
Hands down, absolutely.
As far as
at least in the
only
bass scene,
music,
it is the mecca, right? And that's why I have people DM me or talk about like, hey, you know, should I move out to Denver when it comes to, or even why'd you move out to Denver? When I have that kind of conversation with people who don't even know me from the EDM scene or the bass music scene, either at work or just people outside of the scene, right? And I'm always like, well, this is the place to be for my profession, right? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if you're an actor or an actress, you're going to move to LA. If you're a banker, you're going to move to New York, all these different things. Well, I was like, if you're crazy enough, if you're a dubstep DJ, guess what? You're moving to Denver, right? Because that's the place to be. And it's funny, most of the time when I introduce myself to people, and hopefully job stuff doesn't get brought up when you're introducing yourself to people, because that's kind of a weird thing that we
it's
always
so awkward.
we always put that as like what do you do for a living? I'm like, that has not the biggest bearing of me as a human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know nurses that are really artistic or that can play the piano, you know what I mean, or something like that, like a classically trained, or like I have a friend who's a really great chef, like he's in Michelin stars and stuff, but he's a dope skateboarder, right?
Yeah.
So like your profession doesn't always have the biggest bearing on what you are perceived to as people. But that's how I kind of explain it is like, hey, like this is the place to be for dubstep DJs, even though you can throw a rock and hit one when you're out here. But that's cool.
You really can.
Yeah, right. But that's almost cool as well, because number one, it keeps you on your toes, because you're like, okay, I can't be slacking while I'm out here. There's always someone hungry. There's more moving every single day. I gotta stay on my grind. I gotta stay on my job. And that's the same thing for people above you, like for people above us. Like, I hope we're coming. Just heads up, we're working really hard out here. We're grinding every single day. So be on your job as well, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to work and make it happen. And even, what's really cool is like, it's kind of becoming like all these dubstep or bass music or just EDM households starting to pop up and everything. Like everybody's just kind of, it almost feels like Jersey Shore-esque, where it's like all these people with very like common, we really should set up cameras in these houses.
We really should.
And have like a reality show, or maybe we can just have like a dubstep DJ house off or something, where there's like competitions, like
Denver would be the place. If it's going to happen anywhere, it's Denver.
Like an Olympic off or something, where, we have a pretty powerful household, me, Mitch, and Mike. Kaylee's there too. She produces as well, crazy enough.
That's so crazy.
She's got some fire on the low. Like, I know that people are kind of convening out here. So
oh my God. I mean, I remember kind of like Tampa definitely had like a scene. Like there were definitely people who came out of it, more so like Florida in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was the same with New Orleans, but I remember
Ooh,
coming
real
here.
quick.
Yeah.
It's New Orleans.
New
okay?
Orleans. Oh man.
Every time someone says New Orleans, God gives us another pothole. So let's just keep that. Let's just keep that straight.
New
real
Orleans.
quick.
New Orleans.
Like
New
like a
Orleans.
glass lens.
Okay,
you know what
lens.
I mean?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Every time I played there, now people are probably like, "Shut the fuck up."
Right. Well, to be fair, I just learned the whole like San Francisco thing. I just visited my homie in San Francisco, and I kept on calling it San Fran, and he just was like, "Andre, you can't be doing that around here." And at the end of the trip, I eventually would say San Fran. Cisco. You know, I would like catch myself and correct it. So it's like SF. What is it? The Bay.
Because I knew the whole San Francisco thing. Did not know that.
They're on top of that. So yeah.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Pronunciation.
And I know Lil Wayne says New Orleans to like,
he really does.
But he says it to rhyme. Okay, you know what I mean? So don't.
Just changing the pronunciation.
Absolutely. And we always rep him, but he like lives in Miami now, and he's a Green Bay Packer fan. So we're a little iffy on Wayne right now.
Oh my God. I mean, it's wild coming to Denver. And I remember going to G Jones. I just finished a podcast with Red Drum earlier that day. She was playing that show. And I just remember coming through. It was my first time at Mission. I was like, holy fuck, this is amazing.
Yeah,
obviously.
Mission's
Fantastic.
Premiere.
Row by row, sonically replicated of Red Rocks, which is unbelievable. And
Is that like?
Yes, that's a fact.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Super, super cool. And I'd only seen really, I would say like DJ-esque performers until I saw FKJ there a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Breathtaking. Good. Hearing that, like, it really sounded so similar to Red Rocks, but if it was like in a capsule and it was just so perforated and sonically like balanced, and I was just like, holy fucking
Isn't
shit.
that what they say though? You come for Red Rocks, you stay for Mission.
Yeah,
that's like
that's
the saying
literally
out here.
That's literally it.
It's fun to catch up on all these local colloquialisms.
It's crazy, and it's something too where I feel like when you're raised somewhere, you don't appreciate it for what it is.
Right? There's like, as much as I love New Orleans, there's, questionable sound systems in certain places and stuff. There's a lot of really great ones, but also
Republic hits. I've always loved Republic.
Joy's always on point. Republic's the home field advantage, and that's why it's like when we came in here, up here at the top of, we're over Temple, right?
The loft,
the loft, right? The loft. First thing I said, I love this exposed brick. I love this exposed wood. I love that kind of rustic nature, especially with venues. Yep. I think the wood in Republic are from like Spanish warships or like 200-year-old like wooden pillars and stuff. So I do like to take into account the aesthetics of the venue, but also the sound system is an important part of it, and how it fits into the venue. Like you said, with Mission and how it's kind of tuned towards everything. I just finally, it took me like a year to finally go to Black Box, but I
haven't been yet.
See what I mean?
I was going to try and go for Scream, and then it just didn't happen. And I was just like, it'll be the right time, the right place.
It's hard to get, especially with all these really great venues out here. Like I said, I haven't been to the main room of Temple yet,
Oh,
and I do love a good bottle service club, because that's kind of the
You're
vibe
in a spaceship at Temple. It's
okay.
It's fuego. It's super cool.
The pictures look amazing, but I just still haven't been able to enjoy a set there. So
and there's so many venues.
So many venues, so many shows, so many things to kind of follow up on, and I think that might be one of the main reasons why Denver does have that kind of like, we are the base capital.
Community.
It's that underground community. Yeah. It's really fostered here. And I haven't seen, I'm not too well tuned into it, but I know that a lot of smaller cities and a lot of smaller places, they typically have a lot of infighting when it comes to more underground stuff. It's not always as supported as you'd like to see it supported, because there's only so much to go around.
There's not a huge market for it.
Exactly. There's only so much to go around. So if you want to become that premier underground place or premier underground event,
I have the PK, I have this,
exactly.
I'm bringing in this sound system, the Hennessy's.
There's a lot to fight over. But out here, the ocean's so large, and there's so many things, and so many, the crowd's so big, you can split a crowd. I remember, I think it was Lucid was playing at
Love him.
he sold out. Yeah, Neil's the best. He sold out Cervantes. And the line was like down the block.
I never expected Cervantes to be what it is for bass music.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
Oh yeah. It's the best. And I'm glad I finally got to play it. I was supposed to play it in May 2020, but we all know how that turned out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad we finally got around to getting that venue. And especially with the new raised ceiling and the new LED screen, they're really stepping up over at Cervantes. So mad love to the guys over at Cervantes, the guys and gals at Cervantes. But yeah, the line was down the block for Lucid, and we get out and we're like, oh, that was such a great, awesome show. And then someone was like, yeah, RL Grind played tonight as well somewhere. And he sold that show out. And I was like, RL Grind played tonight? What is going on here, right? And I didn't even know about it, and that sold out. So yeah, the pool here is just so large and so expansive. For better, for worse, we'll see how that kind of plays out. Hopefully, it doesn't bubble up too much, and because all bubbles pop. But they have been saying that the EDM bubble is going to pop for about 5 years now. So
for a very long
it just
time.
keeps on expanding. So hopefully that continues here, and hopefully Denver can continue to kind of lead that path.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, a goal of mine is, because I want to move back home. I plan on being here for at least half a decade to a decade, really see how that kind of plays out and kind of expand myself here. But I want to take this back home as well, right? And I want to make sure, because I feel like every small city, Tampa, St. Pete.
Very comparable.
Exactly. New Orleans, all these more tertiary markets, they deserve it too, right? Mm-hmm. These the scene that I grew up in, we had a lot of major shows always pass over us, and we'd have to go to Houston, or we'd have to go to Dallas, or we'd have to go to Atlanta. And so I really want to have or foster a scene back home in New Orleans where kids can kind of grow up and be proud of it, and really want to expand it as well, and have more artists come through and large artists come through and have bigger venues set up, with Buku going down and Voodoo going down. There's not a large, oh my God, just a heartbreak, absolute heartbreak. But they did amazing, and they helped foster that scene. And I'm afraid that that's going to lack back home. And so one of those things I really want to do, especially thinking of the future, is to really nurture a scene back in New Orleans and keep that rolling. There's a lot of people still doing that back home.
Yeah.
Like the homies at Season Assist, the people at Base Church and stuff, and all the people at Republic and Joy and stuff. But we really need to make sure that the smaller scenes are fostered as well. So it's a national thing, right? It's not just you have to go to Denver to see dubstep or to see great dubstep or to get the best dubstep shows. No, I want that across the entire country, and people need to foster that.
100%.
And so I hope that back home, hopefully you're tapped into stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
And anybody in smaller cities that's working, just keep at it. Just keep working as hard as possible. We're out here rooting for you. You are the lifeblood of dubstep, the underground scene of all small cities.
It really is. It really does start with the community too, because it's we in Tampa, very common to New Orleans, where we have a big New Orleans.
I'm gonna keep on about this. There you go,
New Orleans. I've said it my whole life that way.
Oh no!
So crazy.
So that's where all the potholes came from.
I know. Okay. Oh my God, it's my fault.
It's okay.
Okay. Every time you have to correct me.
I will.
However, there are commonalities where we do have a big music scene. It's just not electronically focused.
Right? Jazz Fest is one of the largest
you guys
festivals
have
in the entire
huge
country.
Music scenes.
Yeah, Jazz Fest doesn't sell out. Jazz Fest is so big, they don't care. They're not going to cap it.
Yeah.
They'll have 300,000 people, 400,000 people at Jazz Fest on the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
They'll just sell you tickets. But these are a lot of classic rock artists, alternative artists, bluegrass, soul, hip hop, all that. And so, the jazz scene in New Orleans, but the dance scene.
We have one underground venue and we have one mainstream venue.
Okay, what's the mainstream venue?
The mainstream venue would be Ritz.
Yes.
Underground venue would be TK.
Okay.
Those are our two. And they have, you have little ones that pop up, or people will rent, a place for a show or all that stuff. But those are the two, I would say, households that have people coming through every week. And it's Friday, you have a commercialized bass act, and Saturday, you have a commercialized house act at Ritz. And then, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at TK, it's underground. It's rhythm, it's, experimental bass music, and then maybe it's a drum and bass show.
Okay.
So it definitely is a fostered community, but there is there is like a four corners. You know, you can only go so far in the box before it's like, okay, this is what we have here. But I also think that Tampa is small enough in that right where what you said before, if another guy were to pop up, I don't know how it would go.
Yes, they split, and that's the thing. We've split. I've seen many split crowds before, and that's why, at least luckily in New Orleans, like the two main kind of like heavy dance places, which would be Republic and Metro, they've kind of found like Metro is going to be your bottle service, and then Republic's going to be, I guess, your heavier bass stuff. So at least they kind of split that. But I've seen nights get split really hard before, where you're like, this
hurts everybody.
This could have sold out, right? But because they've they've booked these two kind of almost similar acts at the same time, it's going to split up. And you're right, it does kind of hurt everybody. But hopefully, you know, we can kind of find a way to find a good balance. But also, like I said about the underground being the lifeblood, like that's where a lot of people get their start in the scene.
Where I did.
Where all the rave babies get their starts. That's where I got my start as well. Just going to like just these jerry rig just sets in the middle of a warehouse somewhere and just kind of just being like, this is the coolest shit ever. I mean, I remember, I snuck into a Rusco show at 16, you know what I mean, when I was still in high school, and that was at the Howlin' Wolf, and that was a really cool set and stuff. But yeah, we need to be able to the only way that we can prolong our scene and grow our scene is to have new recruits come in and get baptized in bass in that kind of sense, right? And that's going to happen, like I said, with the major festivals, which was my big first introduction, was through Voodoo. Not around anymore. A lot of kids I know in New Orleans, Buku, not around anymore. So if we don't have these, we really need to make sure that there is something that we can recruit
that's like a
people
gateway.
Into. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we can progress the scene and grow the scene and keep it rolling. You know, and not all these kids can always travel for shows and do all these different stuff. And I mean, especially in smaller states, like Mississippi doesn't really have a place where these kids can go, and they're going to go up to Atlanta. They're going to come down to New Orleans. They might go, Mobile kind of has some shows every once in a while, right? But it would be cool to have a nice place in Mississippi for those kids to go to. And let's have a giant rave culture in Mississippi and a giant rave culture in Arkansas and a giant rave culture in Alabama, or just in the South in general, to kind of raise up. Because a lot of it's all major city West Coast stuff. And I really want to support the lesser known places and because that's where we're from, right? And that's, and that's what I think everybody's focus should be if they're from a place that's kind of been underserved, is to make sure that it's not underserved forever.
100%. And you're totally correct in the fact that all of those large major like corporatized or independently owned festivals, you know, even if they have someone like Live Nation or AEG overseeing it, that's the gateway. That's the gateway for most kids to come in. And it is funny too, like switching over to our side of it, where, you know, unless you're in that top 5% of a lineup, usually, you know, you'll take those festival slots as like a very big opportunity to get in front of X amount of more people than you would a club show.
Yes.
Where you'll turn around and then get paid 6, 7, 8 more times for the club show. And it's like, it's just an interesting dynamic, and I feel like one has to be there to help the other.
Yes, especially if you want to make money or at least sustain yourself as an artist in this scene. You know, especially, you know, I don't like to talk money too much, but that's just kind of like I guess.
But transparently, most of us make nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah, that's the one thing. I just grew up with, like, you know, my parents were always like, you just don't talk money or
100%.
Don't talk money or politics, kind of stuff like that. But yeah, I've lost money on pretty much all my shows this year. I've paid to play, right?
Which is a harsh reality of like, this is why I do this, is because I will say openly, like, the majority of my listeners in one way, shape, or another want to be on this side.
Yes.
And
they need to know the truth, right?
Yeah, you gotta know the truth. And it's like, I wish you taught me how to do my taxes and apply for a mortgage and do loans and all this shit in high school and college, but you didn't. So I wish I knew certain things when I was hopping into this industry that I didn't.
Absolutely.
And anything that, like, I feel like you or I or any other act or industry professional can shine light on will definitely help people make like just conscientious decisions of what you're committing to, because I'll say one thing is
such
like
a great way to put it.
You really have to love it. Like you have to love it.
Conscientious decisions on what you're committing to. Yeah, great alliteration right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and that's it was a very big humbling moment for me, at least, because when I was getting paid back home, like that was all profit because you're living at home. Even
if you're driving a mile to the venue.
Even if it's a $200 show, you're like, that's $200 in my pocket right there. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have management at the time. So it's just like, I was like, oh, I can make money. But then once you start getting the management, you start getting the agent, you start getting booked out of state and stuff, you realize, oh, this booking fee, albeit let's just even say, let's just go $1,000 for which
I feel like that's pretty standard for traveling for an elementary act.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Which maybe in 2015 you could sustain yourself on, but now, with flight prices, with hotels, with transportation, with paying out any kind of management, any kind of agents, you're breaking even or you're losing that money, which is one of those things where if you're giving advice to people, especially on this podcast and what they're jumping into and understanding, it's okay to have a job, right? It's okay to work.
I would encourage it. I would encourage it.
Absolutely, right?
Honestly.
Absolutely.
Like, I will, like, transparently kind of say that when I was done with college and I was like, this is what I'm going to do, I was, like, DJing just at, like, local things. And I was like, well, I come from band and I come from music, and why am I not DJing my own music? So, okay, you hop into production and then you're doing that. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put 150% of my effort towards this. I'm going to make $250 a week off of residency, do absolutely nothing else. When I'm educated, I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I can use my skill set from college to help with other things and help with clients that aren't in EDM, but are in other, genres. And I think it drastically helped with the amount of information I was able to obtain over time versus having to really prioritize, hey, you have a job and you have this and you have that. However, I think financial stress is one of the most bearing kind of weights on your shoulders that you can have. And 6-7 months ago, I got a job, and it's taken financial stress off, made credit better, made me more money to invest into Lizzy Jane.
That's where it's
all
at.
Of the tour money is now just profit. Whatever I make off of it, even if I break even, and I say, you know what, I want to bring out a VJ for the show because I can do this.
Absolutely.
And then you're not like stressing over this or stressing over that, and you're not depending on, if I don't have a show this month, I'm not making money. And I just think that after COVID, a lot of us learned that touring is not a very solid financial income. It can change and it can fluctuate. And even with people like Mitch, who, does this massive headline tour, and then you go into off season. Like you cannot, it is maybe it's some people can do it for their whole life and be stable and X, Y, and Z, but 99% of people I know cannot be a tour mule 365 days a year.
Absolutely. And if you do, you're really digging yourself into a mental and physical hole that you might not be able to dig yourself out of.
Yeah.
And then you're already in this hole, and then say that tour stops, and then you get money crunched, and then, you're just in a whole other world of hurt. But I've worked, I've been in the workforce since I was 15, right? So I've been working all the way through this entire DJ, producer, career of mine. And like you said, it allows you to invest that money back into your project, right? I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of things that I've had if I didn't have that extra income coming in. It also helps with kind of understanding time and time management. Like I mentioned earlier, like I might slack with my morning routine on my days off because I have a little bit more time. But on the days that like today, I have an 8-hour shift that I have to go hit, right? So I have to be like, okay, in the morning, I'm doing this podcast. We're laying this out at this certain amount of time. I go into work. Afterwards, I only have about 5 hours before I have to go to bed. But I know I have this song I need to work on. I know I have this mix I need to work on. And it really forces you, when you're in that limited time frame,
you gotta get it done.
You have to get it done, and it forces you to kind of really narrow in and hit that focus. Whereas before, there was times where I wasn't working that much. I was living very cheaply. I was doing like
I was doing the same thing. I was living for $500.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was paying $400 for rent, and I was living in squalor. I was living with my homie, and it was everything was really cheap. I was going out for free and stuff because that was right when I started my DJ career back home, and I just wasn't good with my time because I was just like, I have all of this time in the world. I'll find the time because I have all this time. And that's really a really bad mindset to have because I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, especially as I'm finally finding a good wave with this project and a good kind of momentum with my work ethic and everything. Like, man, I really wish I would have had this work ethic when I was 21, right?
I know, me
29 to 21. Man, I wish I would have been this geared in at 21. Man, I wish I would have learned all these time management skills and kind of implemented them back there. I didn't really start taking this super seriously until I turned about 24. So from like 20 to 24, it was just a good old time. I was DJing. I was producing a little bit as well. I was playing a lot of shows back home. And that's kind of where I'm glad I knew that I kind of had to move away.
It takes you out of that local pocket.
Exactly. I got comfortable. And that's the worst thing to do is get comfortable thinking like, why am I not, I'm doing so well here and everybody's loving my music here and all this different stuff. Why isn't this translating?
Here is this big.
Oh my word. And I did not. And I realized that I'm not going to say too late because it's not too late. We're still rocking and rolling. But I realized that at an inopportune time, right?
Yeah.
I wish I would have learned it a little bit, but we live in what is. And the only thing that we can do is realize, okay, although I wish I didn't, right?
Yeah.
Although I wish I didn't. And the only thing we can do is live within what is and properly implement those lessons of the past into now and pursue the future.
100%. I feel like the more I escalate through my 20s, the more I realize that your 20s is literally you just figuring out a bunch of fucking shit.
Yeah, there ain't no blueprint to this.
No.
We're just all just kind of swimming in the dark, just hoping to grab onto something that's right. You know what I mean? And luck out with that. And
everyone's journey is different too. It's very hard, and it's hard too. I think when you have really close friends that are doing the same thing as you, where you look at their path and their journey and you know every step they took and you know everything they did, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Preach.
You know,
Preach.
It just doesn't. And I think now what you said before, where I can take like a water balloon and drop it in a street and most likely I'm going to hit a dubstep DJ in Denver.
Right. Yeah.
I think what is happening now in a lot of cities where this type of music is prospering, which of course is mostly West Coast cities, a little bit of New York, just where EDM is big in general. You've got your cities. You've got Miami, Chicago, LA, Denver, X, Y, and Z. It's like, how can you be unique and bring something really different to your project?
Absolutely.
You know, because I think it's so different and it's so cool that I've been able to speak with people who have been around in times where like YouTube didn't have Skrillex tutorials. You didn't have Ahi saying, this is how you do this and this and this. And now it's so easily accessible between that and Patreon and Ilgate's, school and this and that. And it's like, anyone can make dubstep. Anyone can make any type of electronic dance music.
So what's going to set you apart from anyone?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's I think we all would have really benefited from that. For instance, like when I did get into the scene, when I really started playing, I think, in March will be my 10-year anniversary of my first event ever, which will be really cool.
Exciting.
Which will be really cool. Yeah.
Everybody says it takes 10 years for anything to start fucking happening.
It does. But I keep on telling myself, because I was like, this is my 10th year. Everything should be happening. It hasn't quite happened yet, but it's coming. It's coming down the pike. But I will say I didn't start taking it seriously till I was 24. So that was
Yeah.
about 6 years ago.
No,
right?
and it's a much
Or
different
5
ball
years
game
ago.
too.
Absolutely.
Because we all know those like hobbyist kind of DJs or the guys who are like, I just fucking love this, which is amazing. And we need those types of people.
I thought I was working hard, and then I realized I was not working hard. There is a different level of working hard. And now that I'm on that different level, I'm like, dang, imagine, right? But also, like when I was, like you said, a lot of people nowadays and a lot of kids, they have access to these unlimited amount of resources and tutorials to be able to do that. When I was that age, right, when I was 16, 17, 18, even 14, 13, I was in bands, right? So that's what I was doing. I was still doing music, but I was just rocking out. I was in punk bands, pop punk bands and stuff. We didn't even think, we didn't even know of this dubstep, right? 2011 was when Scary Monsters came out. You know, that was my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is a thing, right? You know, obviously Ruska, I was kind of aware of that in high school as well, and like sneaking into those shows. I snuck into a Tiesto show when I was 17 as well. Like, you know, so, but when we were coming up, obviously like big room and house and progressive house music and electro, like that was a much bigger thing at the time as well. Like dubstep wasn't quite oriented toward the masses yet. So we also came up when I was learning to make music, I was like making a lot of house music. And I was making big room house, and I was making a lot of progressive house. And that's honestly where a lot of my
stuff was popping at the time.
Absolutely. And that's also where I get a lot of my melodic bass with my music. Because when I really was getting into dance music, it was a lot more melody oriented stuff. And and I've always been a melody guy.
But I miss that. And I love that. And I think that there's like something that comes from being in a band that we've like lost within like the DAW, where it's like you want this like human presence. Like there's a reason you put a house delay on your hi-hats to make them sound like they're wider and they're wide scope. Because if I'm sitting at a drum set, I've got my crash and my ride and my hi-hats, and they're all panned and they're all stereoed, and they're not just counting 1, 2, 3, 4 and having everything hit right on that metronome. You know, like there's this real livable playable music that brings this like very raw artistry that I think has somewhat been lost in electronic music dubstep.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if you actually ever go and listen to my music, you'll hear I actually pan my drums like live drums, right? So my crash is going to be on my right, and my hi-hats are going to be on my left, and my snares a little panned a little bit to the left and stuff, just because I love those live elements. Most of my fills are good toms, like KJ Saka toms and stuff. So I try to keep that live element, because that's kind of what like we come from, right? But I am wholeheartedly aware that if I was 16 right now, I'd probably not be in a band, and I'd probably be making dubstep on a DAW. And it really has changed that dynamic, which is even cooler when you see young kids in a band, and you're like, yes, you're doing band stuff at this age. That's what I'm talking about. Let's keep that alive as well.
Because that was the thing. You were in a band.
That was the cool.
You played
that was
local
the alt
shows.
thing to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, you went to shows on the weekend. I mean, I remember my mom taking me to the State Theater in St. Pete, and that's where you saw, you know, Attack and Woe Is Me and Devil Wears Prada and The Ghost Inside and all of those guys. And she would go on the balcony, and I would be 14, and I would go to the concert. Yep. And that would be it. And then it was like, oh, well, like, I want to do this. And it was just such a different time. I mean, you had the I think it was the Ernie band competition for Vans Warped Tour on the Ernie Ball stage. And you had all of this stuff, and it's like Vans Warped Tour isn't a thing anymore. You know, and I was just talking to Cray on Friday, and she's really stepped into like the alternative space, and she's just like, it's just a different ball game, and it is. It's such a different ball game, and right now, unless you previously had a foot in, bands aren't like popping up like they used to. Bands aren't making it like they used to. You know, and again, like you never really like make it, but you don't see Fearless Records popping out a new band every month anymore.
Right, well, they used to have this little demo CDs that they just hand out with 5 different bands on it, 1 track from each band, and you would just go, and you would like, that's how you would find good underground scene bands at the time. And I mean, the main reason I kind of switched from bands to dance music was just a few eye-opening moments when it came to dance music, right? Like I'll always say, Voodoo, 2010, Dead Mouse changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that. Like, I always say, like, people are like, why do you do this? I'm like,
everyone has that one set.
Dead Mouse is the reason I do this. And that's another reason why I'm so kind of melodically oriented with my music and really care about those melodies.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can still create music, but I don't have to deal with the ego of 3 or 4 other people. Because myself, as much as one of my big things nowadays is to kill my ego. I'm not big on it. It's always been one of my New Year's resolutions, and what I try to focus on is killing my ego, because it's led to a lot of frustration and suffering in my life. But I was that kid like at school when they're like, class project time, get 4 people and make this big project. I tell everyone to go home. I'm like, I'm not trusting you. I'm gonna do the whole project. We're gonna get an A.
Yeah.
Trust, we're gonna do it. Just like I might need you to do this, that, and the third, but the whole entire majority of this project, I have to kind of have that control over the situation. So that's really what
that doesn't really work in a band setting too many times.
Absolutely right. So that allowed me to kind of like get rid of that and kind of or get rid of that obstacle and kind of be like, okay, I have full control over this, and I can make this my own and not have to worry about it. But in that same breath, because you don't have those other people, collaborating with you in that setting, certain things suffer, right? For instance, like I'm not a drummer, so my drums might not be as cool as other people's drums, right? I was a great lyricist, I was a great melody writer, and I was a great just kind of song concept creator, right? So I know where my strengths are, and that's what I always lean into. But I remember when I first started working with Mitch, he's a drummer, right? And then so you see his drum patterns and stuff, and the way he layers his hi-hats and the different intonations and the different inflections and stuff that his drums have. And I'm like,
different mindset.
This is why it sounds really cool, right? But other things might be not lacking, but might not be at the same elevation
just
as
because of
his drum.
experience.
Just because we all play to our strengths. So that's one thing that I do understand might be lacking, but that is also a challenge to grow.
100%.
And a challenge to learn and get better at my drums. That's something I can focus on.
You can always get better. That's my thing too, is like, I feel like we're kind of on this cusp where we're still up and coming acts, maybe doing a little national touring, and you release on exit labels. And I think that when we are at the point where people are like Jaws, who have been around for over a decade and over this, the kind of innovation of your project and like the continual, I would say, like maturity of it, whether you're changing this or you're changing something from your branding, or you're going to release an album that's, what Mitch did is all comedy or something like that. I think that's going to be super important in the future of the industry. I think that there are a lot more consumers and listeners who are starting to be more open-minded to different styles of bass music or different styles of music being implemented into bass music than more ever before. Or I'm just caught up in Denver and everyone's really different here.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, have you gone on Twitter recently?
Yeah, so
have you seen people try to do something new and different, and all their fans are kind of like,
yeah.
Twitter's
the 2%. We have to keep that in our mind.
They are the loud minority.
Yeah, they are the loud minority. They always will be. Always have be, always will be.
Well, luckily, I still haven't. I'm still waiting for my Twitter beef, and I'm still waiting for my Twitter haters. Everybody's like,
Twitter haters.
Well, the other thing is, everybody's like, you ain't really making it unless you got some haters, and everybody seems to be chill with me. So like,
that's okay though. It's okay that you don't have people talking shit. That's what I hate though. Is like, I feel like the journey's hard enough that you don't have to like, if people like fuck with your project and they're not mean to you online, you shouldn't feel like something's missing. And I feel like you're not the first person I've talked to that said that. Is that like, oh, like I'm still waiting for some shit to go down, or like I'm still waiting for like this person to come at me and say I'm stealing their shit or like whatever. And it's like, no, like people can fuck with you. And I think that what goes around comes around. And I think a lot of people who do have issues where sometimes it's just, I think anybody with a good mind on their shoulders or head on their shoulders can look at a situation and say, okay, this was blown way out of proportion. This is bullshit. This is just somebody seeking attention.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going through something, da-da-da. And then there's people who don't lead the best lives and probably have made some shitty ass fucking decisions.
Yes.
And you probably deserve some people saying, hey, get off your high horse,
Yeah.
like kill your ego and
Yeah.
realize that what you're doing is not right
Mhm.
in any way, shape, or form. And I think that goes back to the whole conversation about having a job. And you can get so lost in this industry
Oh my God,
that you can
yes.
stop realizing or being conscientious that it is not reality. It is not like, it's amazing to be a touring DJ and do X, Y, and Z and make that your reality, but 99% of people do not live this lifestyle.
That is such a good point. I'm really happy you brought that up. That's something that I've thought about for a long time, and that's it helps me, especially with my coworkers now. I was thinking about, so every morning I do my morning gratitudes during my prayer. I'm just like, I go over the big three, which is I have shelter. I'm sheltered from the elements. I have clean water, and I'm going to eat something today. So I start every single day with gratitude. Everyone should start every single day with gratitude. It's a very important part to keep yourself centered and also realize how truly blessed we really are, right? Because everything else is just extra. If you have those three things, shelter, food, and water, everything else is extra. Because there's a lot of people right now that as you hear this, wherever you're watching this, a lot of people aren't getting water today, they're not getting food today, and they're not getting shelter today, right?
So true.
So
we take advantage of it every day.
So we are absolutely blessed, right? On top of that. But one thing that I love about going to work, as much as I wish I didn't have to, I wish, and not just wish, I'm going to make my life self-sufficient upon my art. Eventually, I will be able to not have to go into my day job.
Yeah.
My art will sustain me through life. That is what's going to happen, right? But as of now, we're not there yet. And it really helps to go into a place, be surrounded by people who both don't know and don't care about what's happening in the EDM dubstep scene.
Yes.
It's really, really refreshing and nice, especially when I get lapped up in my own thoughts and my own negative thoughts of like, man, why is this not blowing up? Man, why am I not getting to where I'm going? Man, this, that, and the third, and all these different things that are surrounding the EDM scene and all the drama, whatever's happening that day on EDM Twitter or whatever's befallen us. And you just go in, and all these other people have all these other lives that don't even touch or circumnavigate what we're doing, and it just brings you out of it. And you're just like, wow, there is just life everywhere, and all these problems that I think are problems aren't actually really problems at all. And it is so refreshing to not talk about this here with I get to talk about whatever's happening in my coworker's life, which just might be about their dog, or it might be about a trip that they just took, or maybe what was going on with their significant other or family, or was going back home. And it really is nice to have that place where you can just kind of step out of the scene. And that's one of the things that I am blessed to have a day job, because it really does help me, like, once more, support myself, support my project. And it also just helps me just kind of recenter myself.
Gives you like a grounding, which is really cool.
Perspective change.
And it's crazy because it's like you've kind of worked through the whole time where, as I said earlier, like I did not. I worked until I went to college. I worked through college. And then when I had my degree, I was like, nope, I'm putting 150% of this into this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I will ever not want to have something that's detached. Maybe not so, oh, hey, this is a day job, but maybe like, hey, you're doing Foley sound for this company.
Cool.
Hey, you're doing this for this. Something to just detach you from like, hey, this issue is not that big, and you don't have to be on Twitter all the time.
This ain't the
world. You don't have to be on Instagram all the time.
Yes.
Like, if you don't post 4 TikToks today, you're gonna see the light of tomorrow.
Yep.
And I think when you're all in, you get really lost. And I think I don't know if you have a narration continuously going in your mind.
I do.
But I do.
Luckily,
and
there's not just blank up there.
I'm not blank up there. But, I think when you have, again, all of this ample time, your mind really can think, and your mind can really go to places of comparison. And again, the why not me? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Why hasn't this happened? And when you have that set schedule and you have things that you have to get done, well, then you don't have time for you to think and stare and your head go there. And I think that there's just a lot of beneficial points to, even if you don't have to have a day job, having a hobby that is disconnected from EDM, from the industry.
Yes.
Because if you don't have something to ground yourself, I think there's nothing more unfortunate than talking to people that, in our eyes, have made it and have been nationally touring the world for over a decade.
Yes.
And they don't really feel like they have a place that, one, they can call home, or, are these friends really my friends, or are they just friends with me because of who I am? I don't have a significant other because I never have had the time. I'm not close with my family anymore. I think there's a lot of downfalls that people don't talk about in the lifestyle of being incredibly successful.
And that's where the comparison is the thief of happiness comes in, like you just mentioned again, which has been probably my biggest hurdle within this community and within this life that I've chosen for myself. Because it's one of those things, and it's definitely something that I've been able to really work on and really get better at over the only really, I would say, past 2 to 3 years, really. I put a lot of work into it because it definitely was detrimental to me for a very long time. But, number one, the root of all suffering is desire. You got to keep that in mind. So when you are suffering, it means you're desiring something that you might not have. And that's when you might have to switch up and be like, maybe I need to have some detachment to this. But also with the whole comparison thing, I've been able to really work through that with seeing the success of Mitch, right? My best friend. I know we keep on bringing him up, but he's a really
Mitch
good.
is taboo, by the way.
Oh yeah, by
for
taboo.
He's doesn't know.
But I've actually broken down to him talking about this before.
Yeah.
Just being like, you are one of the reasons that allowed me to overcome this comparison thing. Because that was one of the things that was one of the worst things that really held me back. Was why this, why that. Number one, you never know what's going on behind the scenes of anybody, no matter how successful you are. Like, other thing is you have to define what success is to you, because success to them is different than success to you. When it comes down to like, oh, I just want to make all that money. Well, money's not, money's the root of all evil. Money's here to corrupt us. Money, although can help you and help others, should not be your ultimate goal as a human being.
There's a lot of gray area.
But having that, your best friend just succeed, and you think to yourself, like, am I really going to let my ego trip over him, not me? Am I really going to allow that to destroy a friendship and a love that I have for another human being? Like, am I going to allow that to happen? Like, fuck no. Like, absolutely not. No, I am 100% behind this person. All I want is to see this person succeed, right? And once you kind of have that breakthrough, once I had that breakthrough, I was like, I can be happy for other people.
Yeah.
Right. I can see other people succeed and get excited about that.
And some people never get there.
Even if I'm not succeeding where I want to succeed, like, you can still celebrate other success. And when you do that, not only do you feel good, but sometimes that success comes back to you as well in other forms. Once you can kind of switch that mode and get that thinking correct, it really opens up so many more avenues of happiness and joy into your life. And it's something that we're going to deal with every day. It's something that I deal with every day. But once you acknowledge that fact, once you acknowledge you have that problem, once you acknowledge and realize this is my ego talking, this isn't real. Once more, go back to your gratitudes. I have my friends. I have my family. Like, I don't know what that person went through. Like, Mitch has had a really hard life, right? Like, he's earned this success. Whoever has gone through this may have, like, maybe, although this person might be touring the country and doing all these shows that you want to do and accomplishing all these goals, they might not have their parents anymore.
Yeah.
I got my parents, right? They might have just lost their best friend the other day. I have my best friend, right? All these different things that comparison, right? They might be like, oh, I might be touring the country, but Dre's got his parents that he gets to go home and talk to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the comparison, it goes both ways. And that's why when you have to really realize and kind of refocus on yourself and be like, I'm where I need to be right now.
Oh,
I'm where I'm supposed to be
right now. And I do
now.
believe that. Like, I believe that 100% that, and I mean, I feel like we've all in the industry seen people too, in like just unfortunate situations where maybe a project bites off a little bit more than they were ready for. And it usually doesn't end well. And I think that building, kind of like we're in a brick building right now, like building your project with like bricks instead of like straw, like even if it takes that much longer to accomplish your vision, like I know you and I want to have a long career shelf life.
I would much rather longevity rather than, although
2 years of pop and see ya.
But that changes over time, right? And that changes over experience, and that changes over just being in the scene for a while. After being like, I just want to pop immediately. Why am I not popping immediately?
Yeah. Why didn't I get picked up to open the store? And then you figure out that they're getting paid $100 per show, and they're eating all the costs, and it's like this great look, but do you have that capital? Like, do you have that money to support yourself to do this? And if you do, all the power to you. But most of the colleagues that I've met, we've all gone through the same shit where you get that first tour offer on a major tour and you're like, fuck yes, let's go. And then you see the reality of it and you're like, oh my God, I'm never doing this again.
Yes. Never. And it's really smart to grasp that early. Like, listen, I'm trying to do this for 20, 30 years, right? My goal in life is to once more sustain myself through art, but I want to be involved with music forever.
Yeah.
In some way, shape or form. I want to be an artist.
The same way.
I wouldn't mind owning a venue. I wouldn't mind being a talent buyer or throwing, like, I'm open to all possibilities. I'm not closing myself to anything. I would just love to create experiences for people forever.
Yeah.
Good, positive. I want to create what got me into this for everyone else. You know what I mean? I want to have those magic moments for other people. But you really don't understand that longevity until you're really in it. But you also, I'm realizing I was almost forced into longevity, right? Especially with the rebrand, having to be something for 8 years, basically 7-8 years, and then realizing like, man, this actually isn't what I'm going to be forever, right? This isn't the way to success. So tell me about
that. Like, walk me through that, because I'm not knowledgeable on what happened there.
Well, I was Clutch for a really long time. Clutch with a K. I started doing this when I was 19. I was just in my dorm room, just like I love cars and stuff, and I was just naming car parts, and I was like, Clutch, that sounds really cool. I was just fucking stoned out my mind at 3 a.m. I was like, that sounds really cool. That's what I'm gonna do. And then I just kind of dove into it with that. I had no knowledge of business. I had no knowledge of the music industry or any of that. I didn't know how to brand. I didn't know what copyrights and all that stuff was. I didn't know any of the legalities behind anything. I just thought it sounded cool, and I just wanted to play music for my friends and party and DJ, right? And produce. And so I just kind of dove into that, and then I got that show booking the next year, which is this 10th anniversary thing, right? And that was just $50, and I wasn't even supposed to play it. They had an opener drop out last minute, and I had a friend who was a bouncer at the venue, and the bouncer was like, listen, bro, like, I told them, I have a friend who DJs, $50, you bout it. And I was like, bet. And it was actually a really cool show. It was me, and then Symbiotic, and then Manic Focus, and then Grizz, right? So
what the fuck?
I know. So that was
my
first show ever. It was really, really cool. And it's funny because I brought it both up to Manic Focus and Grizz, and they were both like, oh yeah, Baton Rouge. I remember that show. It was one of like Grizz's first like big tours kind of thing. And so like once that happened, I started getting some shows around Baton Rouge, and I started getting some shows back in New Orleans, and it just kind of took off. And I just never thought about it, right?
Yeah.
And then when I started thinking about it long term, I was like, oh man, I might have done this wrong, right? Yeah. But you're already too far into it. You're already getting booked under this. You're already getting booked under this moniker. You don't want to ruin the cash flow that's already coming in. And so I was like, looks like I'm Clutch for now. But I always had this inkling of like, I know I need to change. I just don't know how to change. I don't know when to change. I didn't really get management until, funny enough, the pandemic picked up.
Yep.
And then I had booking agents.
When I got my first agents was a month before the pandemic.
Right. Same difference. And I got my first booking agents right before that as well. Right. So I didn't really have anybody to really steer the project. It was all me just figuring this out as I go and just kind of hoping for the best and hoping somebody would help me out. But didn't really get much help, right? Along those lines. Not many people were like, Andre, maybe you should think about something that might be more brandable or something that I didn't even and then I remember looking up over the pandemic, I was like, if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen now. Yeah. That was my sign, right? Yeah. I was like, the world stopped.
Oh, 100%.
I'm not getting any shows. Nobody knows what's happening. I know I've been wanting to do this. If there's any time to do it, this is the time. So I remember having the conversation with my management. They called and they're like, yeah, we want to pick you up and everything. And I was like, awesome, this is really nice. Thank you for believing in me.
But this
we
is
have
what
to
I wanna
change.
do.
Yeah, I was like, we have to do a rebrand. So
Yeah.
I know you want this, but we have to. And they were like, okay, I'm about this rebrand. I did make a few other calls to some few other industry professionals, and they all were like, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
I looked up the copyrights for Clutch with a K.
No.
There's like 72 active copyrights for Clutch with a K. I was like, bet. So this is never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to monetize this long term. And so I got to the drawing board. It took a few months, and then it just kind of came to me one day. You know, I worked in Mardi Gras world. I love Mardi Gras. Love New Orleans. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me maybe see if I can find something to do with Mardi Gras. Maybe all the crews, or majority of the crews for Mardi Gras, are Greek gods, right? There's a crew of Muses. There's a crew, there's a crew of Babylon. There's a crew of Endymion, of Bacchus, all these Greek themes, right? And the first Mardi Gras crew ever created in New Orleans was the Mystic crew of Komuz. And Komuz is C-O-M-U-S. I spell it differently.
Yeah.
C-O-M-U-S is he's the Greek god of festivities, of revelry. He is a cupbearer of Dionysus. He's actually a son of Dionysus, which is a party god. So he's a party god. The Greeks used to throw festivals for this guy, cross-dressing. You know, they used to do all when they were tripping balls back then and stuff for the party. So he was just a party god, and he was always depicted as that, as a cupbearer. He always had a cup, and he was always kind of trash and stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, right? Dance music, it's all about the party. All I love to do is party. I'm a New Orleanian. I was raised on the party, right? I'm going to be partying until I die. And so I was like, cool. So we have a Greek theme, which is universal. Everybody knows the Greek gods, across the globe. So this is something that can be universally appealing. Not too many people know of Komuz. So that's something that I could do that. But also it has that connection to home that I can really solidify for me, right? Mm-hmm. Not just for others. So it's authentic, not only to me, but it's authentic to the world. And I was like, bet. I think I found it. Looked up K-O-M-U-Z. Nothing. I was like, this is it. We're lined up and never looked back. You know what I mean? So, and that was about in May, that it'll be 2 years. So
amazing.
I have to think of that, though, when it comes to the whole comparison and everything, is I did have to take 2 steps back to take 10 steps forward. So I lost a lot of momentum. I lost a lot of, I know I have to rebuild myself through the sound and stuff. So like a lot of the connections when it came to like Clutch has this musical backing kind of things that would maybe make labels or promoters or stuff kind of like perk their ears up and be like, I'll listen to this. I have to rebuild that with the brand I have now. So I almost have to make people re-believe in me and re-believe in the project. So like my 10-year blow up success is now it's although I've been doing it for almost 10 years now, it's really my blow up is I'm only really a couple of years into that now, right? And so hopefully,
but you've learned so much from.
And so hopefully it'll be streamlined, and hopefully it'll gear up, and the momentum will be a lot quicker. Got management, got agents, got more connections, got networks. I just have to get everybody to re-believe in the project now.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have? I know you steady release music, but do you have any like EPs on the way? Do you have like some new singles on the way? Stuff you're excited about talking about?
I don't have any releases lined up for 2023 yet. Okay. We're working on that right now.
Sweet.
Transparency is always the best policy,
100%.
Especially in these learning moments where it comes to people picking up from what we're talking about. So I don't have any. I do have a lot of music though. I have a lot of music lined up. I have, and what we're doing right now is we're fishing for releases, right? Yeah. So we're hoping to get some actual land. Exactly. We're sending all of our EPs out. I have a lot of music I'm sitting on, at least 12 to 15 tracks. At least 10 of those are done, ready to get sent out. If we don't get any signed, which we will, but if we don't, we have plans to self-release them anyway.
Yeah, oh my God, self-releasing, I'm like...
Because you get to hold on to those.
I'm all for it if you have like a strategy.
I'm here for it, yeah.
Like if you don't have a strategy, then it's a little bit like, hey, like you're just going off the whim, you know what I'm saying? But I do think that in this time of like TikTok and just where social media is at right now, and the fact that the majority of labels that, in my own opinion, provide value and worth to signing with within like the electronic dance music,
There's only
bass
a few
music
to begin
space.
with.
There's only a few to begin with. And if you have people looking at you and you have a very distinct vision for your project and you know what you want to happen, then like don't let a label tell you that they can't release your track until 2024 fall.
Yeah.
Like don't do that. Just keep going, because this is the thing is like if you make your own music, which in my opinion, if you're a producer, you should make your own fucking music.
Preach.
Like you can always make more music.
You can always make more music.
Yeah,
exactly.
you know?
I think about that all the time of like, oh, like I want this, like I sent this EP to these labels and this one picked it up. But you know, I kind of wanted this one to pick it up instead, kind of thing. But it's like I'll just write more music for that
And
label.
if they're
and this still
interested
works.
in it,
They're
exactly.
interested. And if they believe in you, and this other one is, and then like go with the one that believes in you, and build that rapport and build that relationship with them as well, because you never know where that label is going to be in 2 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And build that up. And other good reason to self-release your music, like if anyone isn't paying attention to you, you go create that value yourself, and then they will eventually pay attention to you. And then you can be like, bet, where you been? You know what I mean?
The biggest, I think, misconception that I absolutely fell underneath was watching colleagues of mine really get like signed or picked up or X, Y, and Z or put on tour support. And in my mind, my head was like, okay, so if you get on one of the major corporate agencies and you have this group and you have this backing, then like it's just gonna work. But like, no, that is so not true. And my whole thing is, you know, you can make it and create the demand for yourself without any team member, without any label. I mean, I use Tape B as a good example. Like he did those flips and those bootlegs, and now he's, you know, releasing original content and original music.
Yeah.
And the momentum from that and the stuff that blew up with him on Twitter and the interest in his music, like he created that demand for himself. And I think sometimes when people do get picked up from their projects, they're like, oh, okay, like I'm taken care of now. But it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It just starts there. And the more that you do for yourself, the more that you're going to have quality experienced individuals who are more knowledgeable about certain spaces, like booking, like management, like, you know, doing publishing deals, knocking on your door because you're creating that lane for yourself.
Absolutely.
So don't wait on certain shit to happen for you to start, oh, well, I'm waiting until I get onboarded here and then we're going to release this and then we're going to do that. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Because once more, like you said, if you're a producer, you're going to hopefully have more gas in the tank, right? So you should be able to, I'm going to be writing music forever, right?
Yeah.
So I know I got all the tunes backlogged somewhere in the universe. I'm eventually going to pull out of thin air and put into it, right?
Exactly.
So I'm not too worried about that, because I'm like, even after all this music that I've stacked, like I'm still writing every single day. I'm still flipping stuff, doing all what I've always done. And that's why I mentioned, I was like, hey, like we are pushing these out to labels, and we hope that they pick them up, and we want to work with these people, especially ones that we've worked with before. But if it's not the right fit, then that's not a problem. I'm still going to put it out, and I'm still going to do it. And I'm just, once more, I'm going to make you notice eventually, right?
Yep.
Be like, listen, like I know that you have these projects that you're definitely trying to put on and push, because I get it, it's a business, and you're trying to make use of what's popular and what's popping.
Yeah, people have the momentum right now.
Exactly,
but
bet it's okay. I'll get my momentum, and I'll see you in a second. You know what I mean? And that's the only way to think about it.
Oh my God, 100%.
But you also have to be real with yourself and understand. And this is one of those things that comes back to the ego and the comparison and everything, and realize that. You know, like, why isn't this happening for me? Why isn't this, that, and the third? Why isn't anybody picking me up, or blah, 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 blah? And that's because maybe you haven't done enough work, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, like, I know, because that's what I typically
maybe
look at.
Maybe you weren't supposed to make it as your last project, because long term, that was never going to fucking happen.
Exactly.
You know, you're never going to be able to monetize it on a large scale to be like, okay, like, I own this.
Mm-hmm. And I've been having that talk with myself a lot recently, when it has been kind of difficult to continue to kind of push myself back into the industry and really get the Komuz project rolling, is being like, okay, Andre, like, you might not be getting emails back, you might not be getting accepted for these releases, but maybe that's because you still haven't created enough of that value, and you still need to continue to work, and you can't slack up.
Yeah.
You know, you always have to look back at yourself and realize, like, take that upon yourself, and not blame the outside forces. Well, yeah, if they aren't picking you up, maybe you haven't done enough, Andre. Maybe you haven't pushed yourself to that point yet, right? So maybe you need to get back in the studio, and maybe you need to create another idea and create another piece of content to create that for them to finally notice you, you know?
And so much of it is just time, and it's just like not quitting. I'll always say, like, you're not going to fail unless you say, okay, I'm done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're only a failure when you finally stop.
Yeah.
And I give that advice out all the time as well. And, you know, I'm not always the best at eating my own medicine, but that's the one thing
I think
I'm like, it only stops
everybody.
when you do. Yeah.
I'll say things here, and I'm like, Lizzy, you should probably just take your own advice.
Right.
That'd be great.
Right. I have that
conversation.
Yeah. And when you're speaking out loud, I sometimes do give that disclaimer though when I'm giving advice. I'm like, listen, I don't always follow this. I know I should though, but you should probably work on this kind of thing, you know?
100%. Dude, this was such a lovely conversation. I really appreciate you coming on today. I feel like I finally got to know you. You
Absolutely.
live in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to give, now I'm going to ask you, if you were to give 3 pieces of advice
with the podcast. To end up with the podcast.
What would you give to aspiring artists?
Aspiring artists, 3 pieces. Okay, I'm gonna try to do it off the dome as quickly as possible, so it's as authentic as possible, because I don't want to like censor it or anything. Well, my number one advice, just in general, is always approach every situation from a place of love and empathy.
Yeah.
Right. Always approach every single, like anything, with love in your heart, with openness in your heart, and with empathy in your heart. Okay, that's going to go a long way, especially within the music industry, where, you know, the entertainment industry is, you know, you try not to call anybody out or say anything negative about anything, but it can be a little two-faced from time to time, and it's not always. So make sure that in every situation, as long as you are coming out of love and you put your best foot forward, you can come out of any situation with your head held high. All right, that's the number one thing. But that's just life, man. Always approach everything with love, empathy, and respect. Number 2 is be consistent. You know, consistency is key. Consistency is key in my life for everything. I work every single day. I tell all my friends, listen, even all I say, I work every single day. That might just be me opening up my computer and looking at a song that I'm making and listening to it and maybe changing one thing about it and closing it. Okay. But that's still something, right? It doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to work 5 hours a day. You can, if you want to push it and really kind of like, if you have that work ethic, but as artists, you're not always going to be awesome and creative and flowing every single day. You're not always going to have that $1 million idea, but that $1 million idea will come if you're consistent.
Yep.
So that's the number one thing, right? Is always be consistent with it. And that's what's always helped me, especially break through when I am, like when you say hit that brick wall when it comes to creativity. I know that with my consistent work ethic, that it will eventually come because I am in front of my computer every single day. Yeah. And just law of statistics, it's going to come eventually, right? And then number 3 is, this is a really good one. This is a good one. Because there's so many good ones. I would say make sure that you get a good team of people around you, right? A good team of people, and make sure you vet those people properly. But even if it's the team could be anything, it could just be your best friend that's really supportive of you, man. Yeah. You know, but like just surround yourself.
I always say that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've had students of mine on Patreon be like, you know, they're getting their track signed, they're doing this, you know, they're building their project, and they're like, you know, well, am I supposed to like have a manager or like, and I'm like, do you have a friend that goes with you everywhere? Like, do you have a friend that like would be down to go with you to shows or like help you like reach out to blogs or do this? Like don't find somebody who believes in you before seeking out someone else.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think if you're in like an elementary period, like the friends and having that one person like the back pocket of your corner that you know has your best interest is always going to work out better than you going to a stranger that may have experience and saying, hey, can you help me, or can you manage me, can you do this, you know? Right.
Sorry, that's a really great point. Exactly. Just like, even if it's just a homie, even if it's just a friend to support you, but the thing is, that person down the line, when you start popping off, like that could be your personal assistant, but you like But when you start really popping off, you're going to be surrounded with people with not the best intentions always. But you have your one homie with you no matter what, because you brought that person up from the beginning and they've seen you, right? So it's one of those things where you know, like rappers talk about this a lot and everything. Like, you know, I do it for the gang, right? And it's one of those things where you need that really good core group of people who aren't going to BS you, right? That's the number one thing, is they're not going to, you know, yes men and yes women are not who you want in your corner. They'll keep they'll keep you straight. They'll keep you grounded. They'll keep you level. They'll keep you motivated, even when you don't want to be motivated, you know, and you just need that constant stream, especially in this industry of like, I always think to myself, man, I was always picked last for kickball. You know what I mean? I was made fun of my whole entire life. Why the fuck am I in this giant popularity contest for a career, right? You know what I mean? But it's because it's for the love of the art. It's for love of creation.
100%.
And it's for the love of the experience, right? So we put ourselves as artists. Typically artists aren't always the most popular people. We have a lot of trauma when it comes to being picked. And, you know, we're like, you know, we chose a life of like, you know, we need somewhat of a popularity to continue and go, right? And so because we're fragile people who probably shouldn't be in such a toxic environment, we need that support. We need that love. And we need to make sure that the people around us keep us 10 toes, as I like to say. So I think those are good three.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on today. I greatly appreciate it.
Lizzy, it's been an absolute
Fucking
pleasure.
killed it.
I'm really happy that we got to do this. And hopefully, I don't know if you've done repeat guests, but
let's do it.
We're gonna do a repeat guest. Let's
Next
reconvene.
time it won't be at 8 a.m. in the morning, and we'll have some drinks, and we'll have some tea, and it'll be fun.
Oh, we could do a fun drunk podcast.
That would be fun.
That'd be good.
That would be fun.
All
It would
right.
be fun. That's the goal this year, is to really like, I want to have four episodes every month, no
Cool.
question asked.
Cool.
And I want it to be a larger variety. Like yes, touring acts
I saw
coming
you were
in.
trying to do
I want the
artists
bigger
and
acts and
painters
stuff,
and
but
stuff.
like I'm gonna do the Discover Denver series, and then like I want to have return guests on that live here, because so many fucking artists live here.
Yeah.
So why can't I have you on and Blank on again, and
Right.
this person on again, and Mitch on again?
Well, I still-
you,
fu-
me,
fu-
and Mitch should do a 3-person
funny
podcast.
Funny enough, I haven't even been on Mitch's podcast since he moved up here. I've been
I know,
on it
because you were
twice
on
in New Orleans.
it in New Orleans.
Yeah, twice, but we haven't done one yet. So I will hold this over his head because he hasn't asked me to do it yet. Even though I know we talk about it as much as I want to be on that podcast with him, which we
He's
will.
hilarious.
Yeah, we're just waiting for a more opportune time, in the sense of like if there's like some big major release coming.
It makes sense.
And kind of center it around
Yep.
and kind of shoot the shit with
A
that
little
way.
press to like go behind it.
Absolutely.
And the one thing I do love about like Mitch's podcast too is like, I feel like we're thrown in the same conversation here and there, but we're such a different dynamic of a conversation.
Yeah, this podcast
It's
is
so different.
Is so much more oriented towards
It's like an educational facet.
Yeah. I feel like if I was getting as much as I mean, there's obviously like a lot of good
Same
educational
topics.
things.
Yeah, yes.
But Mitch likes that, like, you know, not saying that we love to have a good time here, but a lot of it's, you know, like, we're not making dick jokes right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yes.
Like,
When you sat down, I did a podcast with him when we both played Sunset 2 years ago. That was when I first started, because I started in COVID.
Yeah.
And he sat down and he just started opening up the dad jokes and all of the shit. And I was like, oh, what did I just get myself into?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck, I got to play back and forth. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
I typically do like warn people when they come around. It's like, just get prep. He's gonna shock you out the gate, kind of
No,
thing.
but I love it. And I think it's so cool to have different places to go and listen to, because I think there's just so many podcasts now. But
it's
there's
just
not,
you two in the EDM
Yeah,
scene.
but there's not a ton in electronic dance music, and that still just allows for like so many people to come into the space and do creative things.
No, I think, and that's one of the cool things, is I do think that you two are unique enough in your concepts and how you approach your podcast that
It's not like,
overlap.
oh.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna listen to Lizzy Jane and Taboos. You know what I mean? Not one or the other.
Yep. And that's what I love about it. I texted him when he told me he was moving to Denver, and I was like, you fucker. And I was like, we're gonna fight for fucking guests now.
Well, that's what happened. Well, not that's the beautiful thing about Denver, is you have
It's
all the
so
guests in
big.
the world,
I
right?
know.
But to finish that story I moved up here, like I said, with those strangers and everything. But yeah, he called and he's like, man,
I gotta go.
Well, I remember, you know, I remember when he was helping me move out, I could tell. I mean, it hurt all of us. We were all crying. It was me, Michael from SFAM, and him. They were helping me move out, and we're all kind of crying and stuff because it was. I mean, we just gone through the trauma of Ida, and then now I'm leaving, and everything. And this is the first time I've ever moved away from home, and all that stuff. And I just remember him at the end of it. He was looking at me, and he just puts his glasses on, and I was just like, "Bitch, you crying, aren't you?" And he's like, oh. No. And so, and at that point, I was like, bet, I know you're not far behind. Because he was thinking Fayetteville or Charlotte because we love the South. I love the South. I can't wait to go. We're just Southern boys and we love the South.
It was surprising to me. I was like, it makes sense because of Denver. You
exactly.
know, it makes sense, 100%. But I was like, I did not expect.
But I remember, I always wanted to kind of move up here. I'd been wanting to for a while. I almost tried to move up here with my ex-girlfriend, but she didn't want to and all blah, 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 blah. So I almost got here up in like 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends up here already and I have family up here. I have birth family up here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I just remember him saying, he was like, man, I saw you take the leap, which is for me, like that's not really totally my personality.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more conservative. I'm a bit more planned and methodical and thought out.
You just went. You're like, I'm going.
I just said fuck it. And that was one of my more major fuck it's.
Yeah.
He was like, bro, I saw you take that chance. And he was like, that just lit a fire under my ass. And I was like, so like he was and the other thing is he didn't want to move up here alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And although he wouldn't although he's taboo, right? So everybody knows him here.
Yeah.
But that just because people know you doesn't mean people are behind you.
Or your friends.
Or your friends.
Yeah.
Exactly,
no.
right. Like, so although he could have been like, he goes out and like he would have been regaled and everything and all that different stuff and you've been taken care of like when you go home, right?
Where's your core group?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not yours.
So he was like honestly, he told me this before. He's like, honestly, I don't know if I could have done this without you being here kind of thing. It's my best friend, it's my little brother kind of stuff. So
yeah.
it was I was like, I know because I did it without you. It fucking sucked, bro. It was like total asshole, bro. So it was good that we got him up here. And then I thought it was just gonna be me and him. And then I can't remember which show, but I remember I was at a Mission, and then Kaylee and Mike come up, and Kaylee's like, she's like, so you ready to be roommates? And I was like,
oh shit.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. She's like, yeah, Mitch, we talked about us all moving in together, and I was like, you talked to me, okay, cool, all right, awesome. First I'm hearing of it, but more the merrier. Let's split the rent, Yeah. And it all.
And you guys live in a nice house too, like a cool little place.
Thank you. We lucked out. It was a pain in the ass trying to get four people to all agree on a spot, kind of, because they wanted to. Well, originally, like I remember, Mitch had never been here, so he'd been here, but he never really been around, so he didn't really know the neighborhoods or anything. And I remember. And all Michael wanted to do was to be close to the airport. But I was like, listen, I have a job.
You don't want to live in fucking Aurora. I'll tell you that.
And that's what this story was going to. But I was like, listen, bro, I was like, I got to go to work. And I'm already driving 20 to 25 minutes to work each day. That's 50 minutes of commuting a day. That's a lot of time wasted. Before I lived a mile from when I was living in the city in New Orleans, I used to walk to work in 10 minutes. Okay, I was just a hop, skip down the street. Right. So I didn't have a car for 6 years. I didn't buy a car until I got up here. Yeah. Right. So I was like, I need to be close to work. I'm not doing a 30-minute drive to work every day. Like 20 minutes is topping it for me. So we have to kind of do the circle kind of thing. And it was so difficult to really get everybody on the same page. And they're like, let's do Aurora. And I was like, we're not doing it. I just remember calling one day. I remember one day calling Matt, DMVU.
You guys can move to Aurora. Well, that's why I'm not moving to Aurora.
I was so frustrated. And I called Matt and I was like, Matt, you need to call Mitch and you need to call Michael and you need to tell them why we're not moving to Aurora. And I was just yelling at him on the phone. He's like, all right, Andre. And I was like, you need to tell them Aurora's stupid.
Literally, unless you live in like the southeast of Aurora, which is so far. It's like an hour plus to here. It ain't.
I was like, they're gonna ruin everything. and then finally, Matt was like, I feel you, brother. I'm so sorry. I'm like, and then finally I found the spot, and it almost didn't go through because somebody was a little iffy about it. Then I remember calling Mitch and being like, this is like, I've done so much searching and just trying to figure this out. I just need some help here. And then Mitch was like, bet, hit the group text. And he was like, does anybody have a better idea? And nobody had a better idea. He was like, this is the house then. And I was like, all right, let's lock it in. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
You know what I mean? So,
love it.
and luckily for me, it was only a mile from where I was living already. So it was like the easiest
so
move
easy.
ever.
Okay, good. Hell yeah.
Rock and
Well,
roll.
thank you, dude. Rock and roll.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it. See you guys soon.
Oh, wait, that was all. Oh, see you soon.
See you soon.
Gang, dude. I thought that was all a little extra. No, we out here.
All right.